Police!
Police! Coming up on the Nexus, justice in bed. The rise and fall of China's so-called CryptoQueen, now in a British prison. Would you have fallen for her scam? Hello and welcome to the Nexus. I'm Matthew Moore. This week we're looking at the bizarre case of Zhimin Qian, who scammed over 100,000 people and she thought she got away with around $6 billion worth of Bitcoin. British police arrested her last year in bed, and earlier this month she was sentenced to nearly 12 years in prison. In a moment we'll be speaking to the lawyer of some of her victims.
Because of such scam, you will see families that are broken up, husband and a wife, they don't get along very well.
And some crypto experts about how these scams work.
So many people didn't understand it and also didn't want to be left behind.
It's unfortunate, but we're probably looking at a very small fraction of the funds ultimately being returned.
But first, here's the CryptoQueen's story so far.
She had many aliases, but to her clients, Zhimin Qian was known as Little Flower. They were attracted to her by promises of returns of up to 300% through technology investments. But the money was not being invested as advertised. Her company wasn't mining Bitcoin, it was simply buying it. This was an old-fashioned Ponzi scheme, but a complex one. It worked like this. She sat at the top, hiding behind proxies and others paid to be named on the company's legal documents. On the second tier, Tianjin Lantiangurai Electronic Technology, the registered company where all funds were sent. Alongside it, offshore shell companies laundering the proceeds and hiding ownership. On the next level down were local agents who used viral marketing techniques and in-person events to lure in investors. And at the bottom of the pile, those investors, or the victims. They were given small daily payouts of around $10 and paid more if they recruited others, often their friends or family members. More than 120,000 people in China fell for the scam over 4 years across every province of the country.
Our love of country was our Achilles heel. That's what they exploited. They said they wanted to make China #1 in the world.
When Chinese authorities began investigating Qian's company in 2017, the payments stopped. Hundreds of millions in investments vanished, and so did she. She fled to the UK and attempted to launder the Bitcoin through property purchases and crypto trading. It was an attempt to buy a house in 2018 that was the beginning of the end for her. Her lawyers became suspicious at the source of the Bitcoin, so alerted the police. Qian's Hampstead residence was raided and the authorities seized what turned out to be 61,000 Bitcoin, worth billions. But she was not arrested until 2024, after being picked up on CCTV in York after several years on the run. Qian pled guilty to laundering and possessing criminal property, and in November was sentenced to 11 years and 8 months in prison. The Bitcoin she brought to the UK has soared in value by 20 times, making it the largest crypto seizure in UK history. Ironically, it may turn out to have been a great investment, but now the fight is on for who has access to it.
Let's bring in Jack Ding, a lawyer who represents victims of this scam in China. Jack, how badly has this affected your clients?
I would say the affect the victims quite a lot, both mentally and physically. I think a lot of times people really focus on their physical issues. For example, a lot of my clients have medical problems and medical issues, and because of the scam, they were not able to pay for the medical bills. And sometimes they would absolutely chose to not go to hospitals because they were afraid of the medical bills and associated costs. On the other hand, we also see a lot of older generations and older people who invested in this scam, that they were not able to really wait until the justice is being done. So a lot of them passed away. Now it is really up to their sons and daughters or other relatives to work on behalf of them to seek for this justice. So that's really about this physical issues a lot of my clients already have. Also, in addition to physical issues, they also have a lot of mental stress as well. For example, because of such scam, you will see families that are broken up, husband and a wife, they don't get along very well. And you will also see kids are very angry about their parents.
What was the most common way your clients were scammed?
The common way that the company try to deceive the people is using high, very lucrative payments to the people who join the scam. For example, the company has issued 10 different products. And to be very specific, product one and product two somehow are related to crypto industries and mining operations as well. But if you look at the agreements that they actually signed, executed with the victims, it is very clearly that they are obviously 100% of a scam. But it doesn't matter because the victims are willing to believe that the moment they invest the money into the product, they will be able to receive a high rewarding payments from the company itself. In addition to that, you will be able to see they try to promote the products in different regions through family members, through trusted networks, and also through colleagues. So basically, the more people you recruit, the higher paying reward you will be receiving from that particular company.
And what's been their reaction to her arrest and imprisonment in Britain?
Many of my clients didn't believe it. I still remember last year when I was in London, looking at the very first case management conference, Ms. Qian was being shown on a video camera. And after I got back to China, I reported the same to my clients. And many of them challenged me and say, Mr. Ding, do you believe this is actually Ms. Qian? This actually shows that Ms. Qian Zhimin was really running the whole operation with secrecy. Not a lot of people were able to identify who she was and who she is, what she actually looked like. So later on, when more case files were, being made public, more news agencies were reporting the case. Many of my victims started to believe, okay, that was Qian Zhimin that was actually being arrested by the UK authorities, and that was actually a very big relief for many of the victims.
Jack, just a final question: do you have any hope of retrieving your clients' money?
Yes, I still have a strong hope in this. If we look at the facts, at the state-to-state level, the UK authorities and Chinese authorities have been collaborating very well in this case. According to public available information, as you can see that Chinese authorities are even prepared to send victims to be part of that trial of Qian Zhimin. And obviously, there are a lot of evidence collaborations between both authorities. So I would say this is probably one of the very rare cases I see the Chinese authorities and UK authorities are closely working on. Also, we look at what's happening in China as Chinese authorities have recently reopened an online registration system for the victims. So they were hoping that for those who haven't submitted their evidence to Chinese authorities, they should try their best to submit it as soon as possible. So both countries are doing their parts to try to help the victims. And also, if we look at particularly the legal proceedings in the UK, we noticed that the UK authorities are considering to set up a compensation scheme for the victims. And we also very closely following up with what's going on with the civil recovery proceedings. So I still have a strong hope because I very much believe in rule of law. I very much believe the English legal systems that I think as long as people are following with the laws, with the regulations in the region, in the country, they should have a good chance to present their own case. But there's a however, because the criteria of proving you are a victim is probably going to be very high. And obviously, not a lot of people, not a lot of victims have that strong evidence to present in the UK legal proceedings. So I would say there are certainly a lot of hope in this process, but at the same time, we have to be prepared for the worst to come if we can't have enough evidence or strong evidence to satisfy the legal standards in the UK proceedings. What will happen next? So that will be my answer to your question.
Jack, thank you so much for your analysis today. Really appreciate it. Well, Qian first came to the attention of the British authorities when she tried to buy a London house using Bitcoin. Lawyers called in the police when she was unable to explain where her cryptocurrency came from. Well, let's bring in Joe Ciccolo now. He is an advisor on Bitcoin safety and compliance. Joe, welcome to the program. So she got caught out when her assistant tried to buy a property in London. Where did she go wrong?
Well, she went wrong when she purchased the property. So when you do any financial transaction, whether that's real estate or bank deposit or opening some sort of account with a registered and regulated financial institution, there are a lot of questions. There's a lot of know your customer inquiries made by the institution. There's a lot of information gathering and verification. And so a lot of questions were asked, reasonable questions, about the source of the Bitcoin and cryptocurrency that was being used to make that transaction. And ultimately, when the institutions became suspicious of that, they dutifully reported that, I believe, to the authorities. And ultimately, that is the undoing of the scammer in this case.
Exactly. Now, when the authorities started to take a look at the Bitcoin, where were the clues physically that they saw and said, hey, there's something wrong here?
Ironically, the clues were in plain sight. So when you transact in Bitcoin and virtually any other cryptocurrency, the information is on a public blockchain. And so some reasonable due diligence using open source tools and perhaps some subscription tools as well that are a little bit more sophisticated, institutions as well as law enforcement can trace and provide some attribution to those cryptocurrencies and ultimately understand the prehistory, if you will, of that cryptocurrency. And so in this particular case, being able to disprove the statements made that the cryptocurrency was somehow mined or came into the possession of the scammer years ago, and therefore that accounts for the value, when in this case some simple and rudimentary searches revealed that that could not be plausible.
Right. Now, from a scamming artist perspective, why is selling crypto as an investment fairly enticing?
Sure. Well, I think that there's a lot of fear of missing out, and I think that folks turn on their TV set or they hear and read articles about young folks getting rich off of cryptocurrency and sort of an aw shucks moment where they had this cryptocurrency years ago and came into possession, and folks think, well, why not me? Why can't that be? Why can't I have that security? Why can't I come into that windfall like somebody else did? And unfortunately, when folks aren't doing research or diving a little bit deeper, they get swept up in the feeling of having that security, a financial security down the line, and are starting to think about what this would do for their life and their lifestyle and their family, rather than think about the fact pattern that's being presented to them in terms of the investment.
This is one of the biggest crypto seizures of all time. $6 billion worth. Just wondering, how did the British authorities actually access her Bitcoin wallet?
Sure. So from what I understand from this particular case, the suspect left several pieces of information and notebooks and seed phrases and other pieces of information that allowed the authorities to then access the cryptocurrency and presumably put it into a digital wallet or some sort of custodial relationship that the authorities now control. So unfortunately, we're not dealing with the smartest. Well, fortunately, I guess we're dealing with the smart, not so smart, a scammer in this case, where law enforcement could use these pieces of information to ultimately gain control of the wallet. It would be as if you and I left the password for our email address laying around or in a notebook, and the authorities found that. They were able to log in and then access that. Very similar with regard to a cryptocurrency wallet address, whether that's a seed phrase or some other means of accessing that account, and then ultimately placing it in their control, and then hopefully be in a position to return the funds to the victims, although that is, of course, a very long and precarious process.
Well, that's another interesting step in all of this story. They've accessed the wallet. How would they then compensate the victims if they choose to do so? What are the options available?
Well, it's a very difficult process, and it's very difficult to verify who is a victim and at what point in time. And then, of course, when you're talking about a cryptocurrency like Bitcoin, the price has gone precipitously up over time. But we have to figure out when someone bought it, how much exposure they have in terms of what they paid for it then, and then piecing together, how much can be returned. And these processes are very long and very laborious in terms of the different check marks that need to be checked off with regard to the court system and with the authorities. So it's unfortunate, but we're probably looking at a very small fraction of the funds ultimately being returned, if and how that verification takes place. Because we're dealing with multi-jurisdictional here. So the seizure took place in the UK, but all or most of the victims are in China. So we're talking about two different governments interacting with one another and ultimately trying to make these arrangements. It's going to be a very long process.
Joe Ciccolo, thank you so much for your analysis today. Really appreciate it. Well, before Zhimin Qian, there was another crypto queen, RUJA IGNATOVA. She launched OneCoin in 2014, claiming it would rival Bitcoin, and she convinced millions to invest, attracting over $4 billion.
OneCoin, who is supposed to be the Bitcoin killer.
But there was no blockchain and no currency, and she vanished before investigators could catch up with her. 8 years on, IGNATOVA remains missing and still on the FBI's most wanted list. Well, let's bring in Bitcoin expert Tim Curry now. Tim, the last time you were with us, we were discussing OneCoin and RUJA IGNATOVA. Whatever happened to her?
Well, she has not been captured. She's one of the few women ever on FBI's most wanted list.
Alive or dead?
I lean towards that she's still alive. She had quite a lot of Bitcoin and money in order to evade arrest, have protection. She had a lot of political ties as well.
Must be a really tricky thing, though, being on the run, a few billion Bitcoin in your wallet. How do you spend it? How do you make alliances without being tracked?
So that's an interesting one because forensics can track addresses. Bitcoin is a triple entry ledger accounting system, and it's completely transparent. And so if you can identify addresses, then you can watch those addresses and be notified, or you put up notifications for if Bitcoin moves from those addresses. Ultimately, if you can track where one of those spends or exchanges come from, then you could start putting those clusters together and narrow your search for the missing person.
Why do you think RUJA got away with it and this lady didn't?
RUJA seems to have maybe had a broader criminal network. And in such a criminal network, I think that maybe she was able to get better advice in terms of OPSEC and hiding, is my guess.
Yeah. In terms of the scam itself that RUJA performed and Zhimin Qian performed, do you see any similarities and any key differences?
They both occurred near the same time. And this is when Bitcoin was just starting to blow up. Still, so many people hadn't even heard of it, other than the fact that this, people were making massive gains. But so many people didn't understand it and also didn't want to be left behind. So they FOMO'd into it. They had fear of missing out. They didn't do their due diligence. And they attached to these women who were very smart, well-educated, politically connected, and seemed legitimate. And these were some of the similarities. The pedigree seemed to be very high amongst these women leaders, and many people just respected them and thought that they were role models and outstanding people.
Now we're 8, 9, 10 years on. Are these sorts of scams where Bitcoin is used as bait less common, or perhaps at least less successful?
I think they're certainly less successful as Bitcoin and blockchain forensics have gotten increasingly better, almost exponentially better over time with the use of AI and other tracking systems. Certainly they still occur, but criminals are more often than not, I think, realizing that Bitcoin specifically is not the greatest way to hide wealth.
In this case, Zhimin Qian had some very strange ambitions, not only to take billions of dollars worth of Bitcoin with her, but to eventually become the monarch of a place called LIBERLAND. Now, before we get into that, let's just explain, have a quick look at this report, what LIBERLAND actually is.
The Free Republic of Liberland is a self-declared micronation squeezed onto a tiny patch of land along the Danube River between Croatia and Serbia. For complicated geopolitical reasons, neither country claimed this territory. No one did, until about 10 years ago, when a young Czech man spotted it on Google. On his first visit to the place, JEDLIČKA planted his flag and declared the birth of a nation. LIBERLAND, a tax-free utopia. JEDLIČKA made himself president, drafted a constitution, and set up so-called embassies all over the world. There's about 100 in all, staffed by so-called e-residents, usually based in their apartments. Back to reality, and it's worth noting that access to LIBERLAND is controlled by Croatian authorities, and they insist you must cross from Croatia to LIBERLAND on foot or with a bicycle. No cars allowed, and you're not allowed to sail there either, or they'll arrest you. There's one big problem for President JEDLIČKA and all his so-called cabinet. The Croatians have banned them all from entering LIBERLAND, and so they're forced to govern online. Their entire system is built around digital money, with LIBERLANDers, yes, that's what they call them, interacting almost entirely through the internet. Taxes are voluntary, paid in tokens, with those who contribute the most being given more influence over decision-making. Land and business registrations are bought in crypto, and day-to-day governance runs on blockchain platforms designed to make every vote and every decision transparent. None of these businesses physically exist in LIBERLAND, but all these so-called e-residents and the handful of LIBERLAND settlers are committing real time and money in the hope that one day this utopia becomes a reality. No wonder
Zhimin Qian
wanted to become Queen of LIBERLAND.
Going back to Tim in just a second, but first we spoke to the president of LIBERLAND about why people like Qian are attracted to LIBERLAND.
We've got 800,000 people that applied for citizenship, and they really range from all sides of the world and a lot of crazy people as well in places which we wouldn't want to be. But I would say 1%, like in normal society, you've got some people that simply miss what LIBERLAND is about. And LIBERLAND is definitely not a hiding place for criminals. We have a very strict system how we actually go and check the background of the people, make sure that they don't have any criminal offenses in their past. And this is the very important part of our history, because when people are becoming citizens, they have to actually swear they're not going to steal from their fellow citizens, neither directly nor through state, which is extra level. Extra level. Normally people consider stealing through taxation and through state to be normal. In LIBERLAND, we are trying to avoid even that. And of course, we're also making sure that we don't get any criminals passing through the system. Maybe she felt like she has some relation to LIBERLAND itself, but she has completely missed the fact that we are not a monarchy. And of course, she wasn't probably aware of the fact that we have zero tolerance to people committing crimes.
Well, back to Tim now. We heard from the president there saying there's no more weirdos and scammers applying to be part of this LIBERLAND project than anywhere else in the world. It's the same proportion, roughly. And then he mentioned the widespread use of blockchain to run the whole thing, really. What security does blockchain offer, and what are its vulnerabilities?
Well, the strengths of blockchain are that you can record immutable information onto a blockchain, but the only true trustworthy blockchain is Bitcoin's. With other blockchains, they're usually there's going to be a CEO, there's going to be a board of directors, or ultimately people that might profit from the success or purveyance of this system. I don't think that blockchains are any more necessary than databases in many cases. It really depends on who has the control over them, if anyone. The idea of having a circular economy where you can spend Bitcoin or cryptocurrency in this case is very appealing. It's something that's broadly appealing for many Bitcoiners or crypto enthusiasts. To have that circular economy outside of government control systems and surveillance is far more appealing than something that has to move through compliance banking rails. If I can pay you in digital cash, then that's just as good as me paying you in physical paper dollars.
Tim Curry, thanks so much for joining us today. Really appreciate that. And thank you at home and on your phones for watching. If you want to see this episode or any of our previous episodes, go to our channel on YouTube, type in Nexus TRT World. Till next week then, goodbye.